Good morning and welcome. I'm here today with the Commissioner of the Louisiana Office of Alcohol and Tobacco Control, Juana, Major Cezanne, the Louisiana State Police, and his Public Information Officer, and of course, Commander Scott of our Specialized Investigations Division. We're here to update you on the results to date of a joint operation aimed at addressing human trafficking and the many crimes associated with it. As many of you are aware, in the last 2 weeks, the NOPD and the ATC, along with state police, served notices of closure to 8 businesses in and around the Bourbon Street corridor. These businesses were found in the course of ongoing operation to be the site of multiple criminal violations. Every business we shuttered was found to have multiple instances of prostitution committed on the premises. Half of the 8 we closed to date were found to have narcotics offenses. We've uncovered 70 violations to date and are working through the ongoing investigation. The NOPD, the ATC, and the LSP worked together over a period of several months to gather intelligence and build strong cases against criminals using these clubs as a hub for illegal activity. The owners of these businesses have been told explicitly and in writing what offenses led to their suspension. In many cases, narcotics, but in every case, prostitution. The NOPD is committed to keeping Bourbon Street and our entire city free of criminal activity. The party atmosphere and the culture of Bourbon Street is harmed when businesses and criminals take advantage of the environment to engage in illegal activities such as the sale of narcotics or solicitation for prostitution in a human trafficking effort. These closures represent the first step, but certainly not the last, in an ongoing, broader effort to confront human trafficking in New Orleans. And to put the pimps and those who profit from these crimes out of business. I'm proud of the work our officers have done, and we're grateful for the partnership with the ATC and the Louisiana State Police. Additionally, our 8th District Commander and his officers are always working with the entertainers to make sure that their work and the places they work are safe. And so at this time, I'll turn it over to Commissioner Lombard, who can go into greater detail regarding the charges these clubs face and the mechanics of the hearings in the days ahead.
Thank you. I'd like to start by thanking Chief Harrison and Commander Scott for all their hard work in these efforts. I'd also like to thank our state partners, the state police, for all their support that they have given us in these efforts. As the chief stated, this has been an ongoing investigation. This has been months of operations that led to the suspensions of these 8 businesses' alcohol license. Although there were no human trafficking arrests made in this particular operation, there have been more than 30 cases of prostitution as well as drug cases and lewd acts found within the establishments. The goal of this operation was to stop permitted locations from being used to foster and facilitate criminal activity ranging from drug sales to prostitution and human trafficking. Every club that was suspended has been given a notice of suspension, which clearly delineates the charges that are pending against them. And we have those notices, and we can give copies to the press if requested. Every club that was suspended will have an opportunity to have a hearing. Some of them are set for February 1st at the ATC headquarters. Others are set for February 6th. These hearings will determine long-term whether these clubs are allowed to reopen and what will be the terms and conditions, or whether some of them may be suspended or their licenses may be permanently revoked. Those decisions will not be made until they have had the opportunity to present their own cases with their own attorneys at these hearings. Again, the ATC is focused on working statewide to avoid that, to assure that no one is using permitted locations to foster criminal activity. We are extremely committed to working with the City of New Orleans, the NOPD, and the state police to make sure that the French Quarter stays the wonderful place that it is, that the fun, that the partying on Bourbon Street continues, but that it is done without the criminal aspect and without females being used to foster criminal activity. We have no issues with the dancers. Anyone that is legally dancing in a club, any club that is holding itself out and making the efforts to avoid being used for criminal activity has no problem with the ATC. And we thank you for coming today. I'm going to turn it over to, oh, okay. I'm going to turn it back to the chief.
Any questions at this time?
Are you guys naming the 8 establishments or no?
They've already been named, but they're in the suspension notices that you can pick up.
Can you go back over the, I want to make sure I heard you correct. You said 30 cases of prostitution, but what was it? I want to get clarification.
More than 30 cases of prostitution, lewd acts, and at least 4 of the clubs have drug-related activity on premises as well.
Did you mention sex trafficking? Were there any cases of sex trafficking?
That's still an ongoing investigation. They were
individual charges on prostitution or drug charges on the individuals that were found to be engaging in that activity?
I cannot charge them personally. You're meaning, is the NOPD going to file charges?
There are charges forthcoming against individuals who participated in the solicitation for prostitution and or drug sales.
I want to follow up. So what was your answer when, I believe Duke asked if there were cases of sex trafficking?
Well, prostitution in and of itself is sex trafficking. So there were over 30, almost 40 prostitution solicitation charges against the 8 clubs. So,
About human trafficking.
Well, that's an ongoing investigation.
That's an
So
ongoing investigation.
the reason for this was to end human trafficking in New Orleans, and this is our first step, especially clubs and pimps who are facilitating this and people who are using the clubs to hide their criminal activity. And so based on complaints of citizens, complaints from businesses, we took those complaints and we gathered intelligence, and based on the intelligence we put together a comprehensive plan with our partners to conduct this long-term operation using undercover operatives. And through that investigation, it is a human trafficking initiative, but there are individual instances of solicitation for prostitution.
What about the John?
So we're working on all of that. It's still ongoing. This is to announce and to give you information about the closures, but we weren't trying to focus on the prostitutes so that they become the targets of the investigation. The targets of this investigation were primarily pimps and clubs who are using these places to facilitate the human trafficking and to create more victims.
Chief, some of the dancers and the owners have expressed concern about prostitution and pimps being visibly present on Bourbon Street itself and not necessarily the clubs. Can you talk about what police are doing on Bourbon Street itself to clean up that activity?
During our operation, we have instances of solicitation for prostitution by both prostitutes and pimps. That's part of the ongoing operation. This is primarily to talk about the closure of the clubs, and so there are arrests forthcoming with charges for both pimps and others who facilitate human trafficking through the solicitation of prostitution.
Can you speak to the origin of the complaints that led to this investigation in the first place?
Just a number of complaints that we have always received from businesses, legitimate businesses, from citizens who want to have a good time in New Orleans but don't want to be faced with people wanting to sell drugs to them or offering prostitution for them. And certainly you can enjoy Bourbon Street without prostitution and drugs. And so we took those complaints and formulated a comprehensive plan to target human trafficking and to minimize it and reduce it to the extent that we can. We want to make sure we do our due diligence to have fewer victims of human trafficking in this city.
Jeff, were there any arrests during any of the enforcement actions?
Well, this is a long-term investigation. There have been a few arrests thus far, but there are more arrests that will be coming because we're still working through this investigation. And I would say that there are charges and arrests forthcoming.
Commissioner, can you talk about the timeline to reopen the clubs?
Each club, like I said, has a hearing either February 1st or February 6th. Obviously, some of these clubs were a part of a previous sting operation in 2015, so some of these clubs are repeat offenders at this point, while others, this is the first offense. So I cannot specifically talk about a timeline because a lot is going to depend on what was found within each club, whether the club is a repeat offender, how many times have we had to go into these clubs in the past. I mean, there are some clubs with 3 or 4 offenses. There are some clubs with 10 offenses. So to give a timeline on when they're going to reopen, it's going to depend on their past enforcement history with the ATC, as well as what was transpiring on the premises throughout the months of the investigation. So when I say that to say they won't all have the same penalty.
Are you using closure and loss of liquor license interchangeably, or have these establishments been told that they need to shutter their doors?
No, let me be clear. I suspended, or ATC suspended, their liquor licenses. Many of them chose to shutter their doors because they feel that they cannot make any money if they're not selling alcohol. The ATC and the NOPD did not order anyone to shutter their doors. That was a choice made by the owners of the clubs. What was ordered was that they cannot sell alcohol, have alcohol on premises, and they can't sell tobacco if they have a tobacco license.
Some of the dads have complained that some of the police were reading out their legal names in front of patrons, and that they feel like that might put them at risk. Can you speak to why that was done and what efforts the police would be taking to protect them?
Well, we were conducting investigations, and so, you know, there have not been any allegations to my knowledge of any wrongdoing or policy violations against any police officers filed. And so what the officers were actually doing was gathering information, conducting investigations. And so, I mean, should that happen, certainly we investigate those things fully and impartially, but to my knowledge, none of that has actually happened. And so we're always working to protect people's privacy, regardless of who they are, you know, even in this type of environment.
Have you dedicated any resources to this beyond the clubs or Bourbon Street? Because there's obviously hotspots. People have told me Claiborne, Tulane, Backpage has been a source of prostitution. Can you talk about how you're addressing that?
Well, we have, and we continue to. And so the New Orleans police, along with our partners with state police, are always working overt and covert investigations. Now we're working with ATC, dealing with these clubs. And so the work continues. And so if anybody chooses to create victims because of the profit they make because of human trafficking, they should beware that we're coming for them. And if you have a business that you allow this to happen inside of your business, we're coming for you as well. You know, anybody operating a legitimate business following the law has no reason to worry. Yes, ma'am.
The state and federal criminal laws define solicitation and sex trafficking and human trafficking differently, and I heard the commissioner say that we had no arrests for human trafficking. I'm wondering if ATC and NOPD consider sex trafficking and solicitation to be one and the same.
Well, we do not consider it to be one and the same, but we do understand the distinct difference. We want to do our due diligence to rid the city of human trafficking. In that investigation, we come across encounters of prostitution. And so while that is still unlawful, we didn't want to target the victims of human trafficking, which happens to be prostitutes who may be doing that at the moment. We wanted to create a comprehensive plan to reduce and to eliminate human trafficking in New Orleans, especially when it comes to the clubs who are allowing this to happen in the clubs. Well, whether they know it or whether they don't know it, it's happening. We want to make sure we reduce that and eliminate that. And so working with our partners, we went forward with this plan, and the work continues.
Brief follow-up. Solicitation violations, though, are different from sex trafficking violations, and from what I've heard, there hasn't been any arrests or violations for sex trafficking that either of these raids found.
Well, the investigation is still ongoing. We're here today to have a press conference about the closure of the clubs, but much of the investigation is still ongoing, so that information could be forthcoming.
Chief, could I ask you of all the questions on this matter, what do you know about the shooting that left 2 women dead on Palmetto? Can you update us?
It's very preliminary. We were just informed about it not long ago, and say I don't have any updates for you on that. But back to this story. Anybody have any other questions about this?
Can you address the timing of these actions? This is obviously right in the middle of Carnival, right in the middle of the big tour season. Was the timing deliberate? Was this?
Well, we take action when people commit crimes, and we don't consider the time of day when people commit crimes. We take action.
This is a months-long investigation.
Several months.
Several months, and clearly it's happening right during the city's busiest tourist season. Was that a deliberate decision, and if so, why?
That's not a deliberate decision, and we take action when we find evidence that crimes are committed, and we did our due diligence to rid the city of human trafficking, and that work continues. There will be more actions taken. And so right now, we just want to make sure that people who are using these clubs to allow this criminal activity to take place, that we hold them accountable. And so we have done our due diligence, but it has nothing to do with what time of year it is. It has everything to do with the fact that a person or an entity or persons committed a crime, and we took action against them to hold them accountable when they committed that crime.
Can I, Chief, presumably not everybody was running afoul of the line. Is there any comment you'd like to make to the people who don't have a job right now, maybe have a baby at home, and this was their only source of income?
Everybody is entitled to due process. They will have a hearing. You heard Commissioner Lombard talking about that. Everybody's entitled to due process. But we took the complaints from the citizens, from the businesses, and we acted upon that, put together a plan to rid the city of human trafficking, and we will continue to do that. And so as citizens complain to us, we will act on those complaints because we represent them.
All right, Chief, sorry, one more. Given what you've been saying about the focus on human trafficking and some of the comments you've made about the people accused of prostitution, are you saying that that if there's no human trafficking, the people that are being accused of prostitution are not going to be facing charges in this individually, or you're saying y'all aren't? I believe you said earlier that y'all aren't primarily concerned with instances of prostitution. You're concerned with instances of human trafficking.
Well, we're always concerned. We're concerned about every crime that's committed by a person committing a crime. The mission of the operation was a human trafficking effort, and so that was the mission of the operation. There are in the future charges that are forthcoming against individuals for both drug violations and prostitution.
Can you explain the benefit to the citizens of New Orleans and to your organizations and your efforts in general in conducting such a sensitive investigation in such an overt public way?
Well, the benefit to the citizens is to have a crime-free environment where citizens and or visitors can enjoy what New Orleans has to offer in a crime-free environment. That is the benefit.
I'm asking whether doing this covertly would have been in the benefit of the people that you are trying to find who are being harmed.
You got to explain that a little better.
To conduct the investigation in such an overt way, I'm wondering why that was the best method to find what you're looking for.
People hide behind a lot of things to sell drugs and to traffic females. They don't do that very publicly, and they don't do that in front of law enforcement. And there are a lot of ways they try to avoid law enforcement. So we have to use covert operations to be able to get to the people who are actually facilitating these crimes. Well, they're public places. Thank you.